As always, that was good friend of the podcast, Mr. Colin Gow, with his song Podcast. This is Steve Shoney. I'm the city manager for the city of Up Arlington. I'm here with my sidekick,
Darren Shulman, the city attorney, and for possibly the last time,
I think the last time,
producer Brian, who is the silent person we're yelling at off screen, although he's standing right. He's leaving.
We don't have screen, off mic.
Off mic. He doesn't talk. He's just there. Always a comforting blanket over us, and now he's gone.
He is leaving us. He is going on to bigger and better things, but staying in the community, going to work. Is this like super secret? So he is going to work for Assured Partners, right? To manage their digital media. He will be, he lives in the community. He will be staying in the community as he works because they're moving into the new Gateway building. I'm sure there will be conspiracy theories somewhere that we allowed that whole thing to get built, even though you didn't work here, and we didn't know Assured was going in, just so that we could keep you in the community.
The entire Gateway project was our long-range plan to make sure Brian didn't leave us. Although he's still not going to help us with the podcast, so I don't know why we would.
No, I don't know why either. So we will dearly miss Brian. We will look for opportunities to make fun of Brian as the day goes on, and anything that goes wrong is Brian's fault. And he doesn't have a mic, so he can't say anything.
He can't defend himself.
Yeah. So it is with a heavy. I would have a heavy heart, but for the fact that we have our guest today. Our guest is Nanette Lacuesta. Did I pronounce that?
You sure did.
Good. I wasn't sure how hardcore with the Spanish to go on Lacuesta.
There's nothing worse than you trying to be like super
do the whole
accurate,
Nicaragua,
and then it comes bad. Yeah,
exactly. Nanette is a member of our community and is a family health or family physician over at Ohio Health, practicing out of Riverside, and is the director of the Physicians Diversity Program. Did I get that right too?
Yeah. Yep. So that's correct. It's the Physician Diversity Scholars Program. Yeah.
Thank you.
So you were correct, but really you weren't.
Well, it's because I didn't put my glasses back on, and I'm trying to read my notes.
He did prepare. He has the notes here. He just can't see them.
I did the Google search 5 minutes ago.
No, you did it earlier. We did brief this. You
we
prepared.
Did. So we've talked. You've listened to a couple podcasts.
I have, and I still came here anyway.
Yeah. And here's the other bad thing for you. I think you're. Correct me if I'm wrong, producer Brian and Steve. I think you're the first actual doctor we've had.
I was thinking that you are. I've
got a lot of medical questions. I want some free consultations on.
Oh man! Well, if it's anything like my family reunions, what I usually do is I give them an hour, and I say, okay, 1 hour free for all. But I'm not ducking in any closets. I'm not going in any dark corners. You have 1 hour. Ask me whatever you want. If you have a rash, you can show it to me right here in front of everybody. But
Darren, you cannot show her a rash.
Luckily, I don't have one for all involved.
Right in front of everybody.
Yeah, Brian will quit. Oh wait, too late. I'm
Hey,
gonna keep doing
that was good.
I won't really show you anything, but you are the first doctor, so that's like a
first medical doctor. We did have Dr. Gary Shulman.
We did have Dr. Gary Shulman. Yeah. PhD. Do you guys have like a rivalry with PhDs? Like we're the real doctors?
No, we try not to compete with PhDs because they're the ones that trained us. So yeah.
That's some deep insight.
That is a deep insight. Okay.
Well, honored to be the first physician.
MD.
Yeah.
So, as you know, we start every podcast with start, bench, cut. So you're going to say, which one of these three things would I start? I say it's the best. I'm ride or die with this. Which one am I going to say is on the bench? This is like a sports analogy thing.
It's okay, but it's not like your number one.
If my ride or die gets injured, and I can't do this, I can bring this one out of backup. And the third one, it's gone.
Got it.
You cannot even ever do anything with it again. It's off the world.
So now in your prep stuff, you said that you were a fan of 90s pop.
Yes.
And this is a test on how cool Steve and I are because we tried to come up with the correct groupings here. The answer is not cool, by the way, but still.
NSYNC, Backstreet Boys, 98 Degrees.
Oh my goodness. That's like asking, which of your children do you want to start?
That's why we didn't prep you. That's what we want.
Okay.
I want to see you sweat.
Okay. Start. Ooh. I'm going Backstreet.
And by the way, I walked around the office and asked every woman in the office who I thought was roughly in your same age range and they all agreed that these were the three toughest that we could.
I was
going to
say you're treading dangerous waters here by trying to guess my age range, but okay, I like it.
I said you said 90s pop, so I figured that gave me anyway.
I didn't do that part. That's all Steve.
Yeah. So
I'm still the good interviewer.
So when I said start, Backstreet Boys. I did get a couple of fist pumps from our friends in the room here. So
Maggie is pretty happy with that one.
Yes, absolutely.
But not insane.
They're going on the bench.
Okay.
They're still around.
And sorry, Nick Lachey.
Gone.
So
Bye.
Is it even close? Because I feel like 98 Degrees is not even close to the other two.
I can't even name anyone else in 98 Degrees. So yeah, he's
You got
gotta
one.
go.
You did get one.
Yeah, just.
But
the
he
one.
doesn't get any props for being like the king of like cheesy romance dating shows these days or anything like that. Nothing.
No, the most notable thing he did was marry Jessica.
Yeah.
Does it,
And we're done.
if we took
Sorry.
out 98 Degrees and put in like the pinnacle of 90s cultural significance, Vanilla Ice, does that change your answer ranking at all?
No.
You're just saying
He's
that
an
because you went to
icon.
the Zucchini Festival and saw.
I went to the
him.
Zucchini Festival and saw Vanilla Ice, and he was all about the 90s.
He's an icon. He's an icon. But I really appreciate the shout out to the 90s pop because, I always think about, all right, someday when I'm in the home and they need to reorient me to my most lucid time, it's going to be 1994 and they're going to play me some Backstreet
She's not
Boys for
responsive.
sure.
She hasn't spoken in 15 years, and then
Yes.
all of a sudden,
Tell
tell
me
me the
why.
meaning of
Yeah.
being lonely. She's like, oh, I'm here.
There it is.
Yeah.
There she is.
So Maggie, when we were saying that the ability to like hit the dump button on stuff, that Darren singing piece is exactly what we're talking about. We weren't talking about people like cursing or anything. It was Darren trying to sing that we need to make sure that we cover up.
Steve, did you want to do your backup music one, or can
So
I get mine? out of the way?
we typically do a second one, and so that was boy bands. I did not want to leave the ladies off the list. Destiny's Child, TLC, Spice Girls,
Oh, okay.
and there is a right answer for this one, by the way.
Wow.
Even
okay.
producer Brian is. Hey, if we don't get Steve's answer, will you come back and work here, just to find out?
Well, I'm starting with Destiny's Child. TLC goes benched, but that's a tough one because I love TLC and
That is a
sorry,
tough
Spice.
one. Spice
Yeah.
is gone.
Well, I mean, Destiny's Child just wins because I got Beyonce. I mean,
True.
it's yeah.
Well,
Don't sleep on
Okay,
Kelly.
that was the right answer, by the way.
Don't sleep on
No.
Kelly. She's a boss.
Yeah.
I saw TLC in concert. They opened up for MC Hammer. That's a little bit of 90s magic for you.
Okay,
That
so
sounds amazing.
you might be the, and there's probably good reason for this. You are, I hope you're the only person I know who has seen both Vanilla Ice and MC Hammer in concert.
I'm
If
sure
not,
they've
then
toured
I-
together. If they haven't, they should. Okay, Steve got some musical knowledge, and that's good, but I like to watch a lot of TV and movies.
Okay.
You are the first actual doctor
Oh yeah.
that I have gotten to interview ever, and even my friends who are doctors, they don't count. You're my first like actual doctor person who I can talk to outside of showing a rash.
Okay.
So I want to know which these are.
Which you're not going to do today.
Not doing that today, I promise. These are TV doctors.
Okay.
And I tried to pick ones that you should for sure know, even if you don't watch TV.
Okay.
Do you watch TV at all?
I mean, I do now.
Probably not a lot
In
because
the
you are
90s,
a doctor.
a little bit less.
These
but
aren't
yeah.
90s. I
Okay.
abandoned 90s. I went
Okay.
to what I like. Doogie Howser. You know who that is?
Yes.
House. You know who House is?
Yes.
And Meredith Grey from Grey's Anatomy.
Oh, wow.
So you know who all three of them are
Yes.
first. Okay.
Yes.
So how do they rank in terms of doctors?
Okay, I'm going to go Meredith Grey.
Number one?
Number one.
My wife and sister-in-law, thank you.
I'm going straight to girl power there.
That's fair.
Meredith Grey. And she was a boss, right? And then number two, I'm going Doogie.
You kind of have to. Dr. House is out, huh?
Yeah, I think, and I'm going to have to bench Dr. House because he was just so scary.
He wasn't nice. He
was
did not
so
have
scary.
a bedside demeanor.
Yes.
Okay, I got two others I want to throw in there then.
All right, let's keep going. Let's run through all the doctors.
George Clooney from what was
ER?
ER,
Oh, okay.
or Dr. Pimple Popper.
Oh, Dr. Pimple Popper. Hello.
He's good.
I didn't even hesitate.
Yeah, that was fast.
I didn't even hesitate. I mean,
I figured as a family physician, you've.
I've popped some
it's
things.
relatable.
Yeah.
Can
yeah,
we just
totally
reflect on the
relatable.
gravity of what just occurred? Someone probably for the first time in podcast history was given a choice between George Clooney and Pimple Popper, and Pimple Popper won.
I mean, so you're either a pimple popper person or you're not. Some people are like really into it and they're like, okay, I love this. I could watch this all day. And some people are like, I'm so grossed out by this. I can't even go there. And so like, it's one of those two people. I'm on the positive end of that.
Okay.
I love it. And I think that part of it is I love those procedures, number one. And then the other thing is, oddly, I have a lot of my patients who come in and say, you remind me a lot of her. So I don't know if maybe there's like that. I don't know.
Okay, well, I'll just leave that where it is. Is that good or bad? I don't know.
I'm going to take it as a positive because I think people generally like Dr. Pimple Popper. Like, she's pretty
cool.
They like to go see her, and she makes people
She
feel
makes
a lot
them better.
better.
Yeah.
I do want to circle back to Doogie Howser, though. That one was kind of tough for me between that and the Meredith Grey, but just because, Doogie Howser is an institution. Like, he's an icon, right?
He's,
like, everyone
he's a little
knows.
older in terms of like when the show came out, but everyone still knows.
Yeah, Neil Patrick Harris is pretty cool.
Yes.
And like, you are called a Doogie Howser if you're a young person who has been
That's
really
right.
smart or whatever. So it's culturally beyond the
Culturally beyond the show, and is frequently referenced. No one ever says, oh, you're a Meredith Grey. It's like, well,
show. Yeah, I don't even know if that's good or bad.
yeah.
So, were you a Doogie Howser growing up?
No, I was not a Doogie Howser growing up. I went kind of traditional plus to medical school. So Doogie Howser went to medical school probably when he was 12, something like that. Something like that. No, I kind of went the more traditional route where the high school, college. Then I took a couple gap years. Yeah. Had a master's, trying to figure out what to do. Worked as a medical assistant for a while here in Upper Arlington, actually, and then went to med school.
So where'd you grow up?
It's funny because I've lived in Columbus just as long as I did in my hometown that I still refer to as my hometown. But yeah, I'm from Salina, Ohio. It's like rural northwest farming town. Salina.
I know someone from Salina because I've actually heard of it, and I assume I never would have heard of it if I didn't know someone from there, right?
It is actually the center of the universe.
Fair.
Is what I.
Aside from that, I must know someone from there. Yeah. That and it is the center of the universe.
It's home of the Fighting Bulldogs. There's a lake there.
That was a great endorsement. They got a bulldog, and there's a lake.
There's a lake.
Yes. Yeah. Yep. There's a lake there. So rural northwest Ohio, small town, 10,000 people when I was there. Probably similar still.
As a real doctor, do you enjoy doctors on TV, or does it drive you crazy? Because I have the same thing with lawyers and doctors are half the shows, right? So I have that problem.
Third, because got cops.
Cops are third, yeah. So third, yeah. So does it make you crazy because it's inaccurate, or you just let your brain go and you like that you're kind of being on the screen?
Like the reality doctor shows, I don't mind. But like the fiction ones, those kind of make me a little bit crazy. I think the most realistic fictitious medical show is actually Scrubs. I don't know if that's disturbing to any of you.
I've heard that before. So we're good friends with the Shepherds, Ed and Kim, and we've heard that from them that yes, it reminds them very much of their like residency days. And
yes.
The craziness of it all.
Yes. I mean, and it's just like, the personalities and the interactions with the patients and like the interactions between the residents and and even their medical content was probably the most realistic of all of the medical shows that I've watched.
Are you able to tell me what sarcoidosis is? Because everything in House was either sarcoidosis or he thought it was sarcoidosis first and almost killed the person and it wasn't.
And that's why he got benched.
Because he just didn't know.
Because no one wants to talk about sarcoidosis.
Is it a real thing, at least?
Yeah, it's real.
What is it?
I mean, is it something people can get?
It is something.
I mean, he literally thought it was at every episode. It sounds cool, but I have no idea what it is.
It's like one of those. They call it one of the zebras, right? You got to keep it on the list of things that people could get. It's like more of a It's a very specialized thing, but that's why House gets benched because no one wants to talk about that.
Was that like supposed to be funny for doctors who were like, oh, it's sarcoidosis?
They're gonna talk about sarcoidosis again. Yeah.
I don't know. Honestly, I didn't even really watch very much of House because he made me so uncomfortable. I was like, I don't like this guy. He's mean and scary.
So as a doctor, you don't use that kind of demeanor.
I mean, I try not to.
You seem pretty scary though, so I mean, maybe you're just hiding it from us. Just kidding.
I try not to use that demeanor. I think maybe that's why a lot of people don't want to go to the doctor because maybe they do watch a lot of House and they're like, I don't want that kind of interaction. But if they had JD from Scrubs, they're like, yeah, I'm on board.
Absolutely.
I'm on my way.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
If they had the Doogie Howser, they'd be like, I'm not sure this guy's a doctor, but I'm going to go with it because he's cool and he can't drive.
Yeah.
He didn't have a license. Remember, that was part of the thing.
I don't think it was because he couldn't drive. I think it's because he was cool. And he's Neil Patrick Harris, and even as a young kid who was kind of geeky, he was kind of cool.
He's cool.
All right, so grew up in Salina, moved to Columbus area, went to the undergrad, went to med school. So now you're a family doctor, and you've got this dual appointment with running the Diversity Scholars Program.
Yeah, there's a lot of things going on there. So it's interesting. So I'm a family
walk
physician.
Me through this.
Yeah, there's a lot of things. So I wear a lot of hats. So I'm a family physician. So that means I take care of families, including newborn nursery. Like as soon as they're born, I can take care of them in the newborn nursery up through geriatrics. But I work and teach in a residency program. So again, scrubs like JD.
Yeah. That's why you like it. Okay.
Yeah, maybe that's why I feel like that's the most realistic. So I work in a residency program training physicians, resident physicians, and that's part of my job. And then the biggest part of my job is I direct diversity and inclusion initiatives for Ohio Health medical education program. So the rest of the residency programs outside of family medicine, I work in that area, and part of that job is directing a mentorship program for students who are underrepresented in medicine, trying to increase the diversity of the physician workforce to better reflect the diversity of our patient population in Central Ohio.
So who are those interns? They're college students who are maybe considering med school? Or is it even earlier than that?
So in the Diversity Scholars Program, those are medical students,
okay.
And our affiliates are, Ohio State, Ohio University Heritage College of Medicine, and then Wright State Boonshoff School of Medicine. So those are medical students from those three schools, but then after they graduate from medical school, then that's when they become interns, and an intern is a first-year resident.
Oh, you know what? I always have to remember when I'm talking to my doctor friends to remember ER. Like, they're the Noah Wiley characters. Like, they're
By the
doctors,
way,
but
if
they're
you
not.
haven't figured it out, everything in Darren's world involves a TV show.
Okay.
Just be glad that there's not a cartoon or like a.
If it was a doctor cartoon
or a doctor like comic book thing, he would be asking you all about whatever the DC comics.
There's Doc McStuffins. That's a cartoon.
There's Doc McStuffins. Parker loves that show. But yeah, so they're not. They're out of med school, but they're kind of like doing that first year kind of thing, right? So it's not like an internship like I would have where someone's in college still. Is that kind of how it works?
Well, there are interns that are medical residents, but they already have their medical degree.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's what I get confused. Sorry.
Yeah.
That was my Noah Wiley reference, which I probably got wrong because I haven't seen that show in forever.
Well, and those shows are also confusing because they start out as residents and then they become attendings, and then the next thing you know, then they're in charge, and then new ones come, and then I stopped watching the show, and then I don't know what's going on.
Yeah, and then Meredith Grey is still there somehow after like everything's happened.
Right.
It's like everyone's gone but her. Sorry.
All right, can we go back to finding out what she does for work?
I just wanted to figure out where the whole hierarchy is, and now I know where Noah Wiley is in the program. So yes, I'm good.
Yeah.
All right, so how do you go from being like seeing patients every day and directing, helping direct the residents to kind of taking over the diversity initiatives for Ohio Health in this part of the
how does that work, right? It's like there's a lot of stuff. And so it's like, well,
because you're like seeing patients, and then suddenly it's like, hey, let's have you take over this really complex part of our training program.
Well, it's kind of, I kind of compartmentalize it. So I like see patients, a couple half days a week, and then I supervise the residents a couple half days a week, and then on the off days when I'm not doing either one of those, then I do kind of the administrative portion of directing those programs and meeting with those students and recruiting mentors and talking to people about the program to elevate the importance of the work and to raise money to support the program and bring attention to the work that needs to be done and the resources that the students might need, and giving them all the access to different opportunities that they might need in order to advance their medical education or to be competitive to apply for residency and that sort of thing.
Are you pushing the family practice residency in particular, or are you like all doctors are good, or you're like, hey, we're better than the plastic surgeons or something? Are you trying to protect that house?
Yeah, it's tricky, right? Because like even though I have one specialty, part of the tenets of being a good mentor is trying not to, clone yourself and trying to, really build into the life of somebody else by, supporting whatever it is that their professional, goals and needs are. And so that is actually part of the spiel that I talk to potential mentors when someone comes to me and says, I really want to be a mentor in this program. It's like, well, it's not just trying to duplicate yourself or to advance your own specialty. It's to find out what it is that the student really wants to do and to try to support them in whatever their goals are. So.
Cool.
I'm sold. I would sign up right now if I had any potential to ever be a doctor, but I don't.
No, you're.
It's not too late.
We've learned from Darren that his math skills, and therefore I'm guessing his scientific and skills are not wonderful. He's very analytical. He's a pretty good lawyer.
There's a reason why I'm a lawyer and not a doctor, is because you guys are smarter than I am.
Well, no, I don't think that that's it. I think that our brains are just wired differently. I've learned over time that it's when you want answers or support from an attorney, you start with the outcome that you want, and you say, what support can you provide or fill in order for me to get this outcome that I want?
Exactly. It's like you're speaking my language.
Whereas with a doctor, when you talk to a doctor, you just start with here's what's going on. What do you think it is? And then we give you a long list of a menu of all the possible things that it could be.
Sarcoidosis.
And then, including sarcoidosis. And then we, try to think of, cast a broad net and then use our diagnostic reasoning to try to narrow it down in the testing and things. But it's just totally different ways of thinking. But no, we're not any smarter than attorneys. It's just different ways of thinking.
It makes perfect sense. It just clicked in my brain. Did you play a musical instrument growing up?
I did.
Is there something about that makes you a doctor? Because every doctor I've talked to played a musical instrument, and there's something about your brain working better or something, in that kind of side of your brain. They've told me it helped.
Well, I think that the art of medicine is a true thing, because there's never always one true answer, or there will be eventually, we hope. But yeah, maybe. But I mean, I would maybe answer your question with another question, because how many of you also played an instrument?
I did.
I kind of was told not to play after I tried for a while, so they're like, this isn't working out, man. So law school was for me. Yeah.
I do have this hypothesis, though. Sometimes when I'm examining patients, I say, okay, open your mouth, say, ah, and then if they match pitch with me, I'm always like, wait, were you in choir? And most of the time, if they can match pitch, they're like, no, but I played this instrument or whatever. I think that there is something there when I say, ah.
So part of my problem is you would do that, and I would not match your pitch, and I nonetheless still played and was in the choir, and it was problematic.
So probably not very good.
No, it was not particularly good. I had fun, though. So when you look at the students and the interns and the residents that you're working with now, how have things changed over the last few years?
Wow. Okay.
With what you feel like your students are facing?
So I think that one of the biggest challenges in medical education with our learners now was actually probably a product of the pandemic, in that when the pandemic happened, a lot of things shut down even for the students. So students who would normally be rotating in the hospitals or in the offices and working one-to-one with physicians and seeing, how to interact with patients, a lot of that went virtual or not at all. So we're doing a lot of catch up. We're trying to, figure out what skills and attitudes or, techniques and, interviewing, all of that stuff is a little bit lagging behind. So, the didactic portion, still there, and excellent infrastructure, but I think it's that piece of the practical application and trying to figure out, the patient interview and getting the answers and how the hospital works and doing the stuff of becoming a doctor. That part was lacking. So I think that's one of the things that's really different. And then the other thing that I think is different now, I guess if I'm thinking more broadly compared to when I was in training, I think is the access to information from a digital perspective.
You guys don't just Google stuff, do you?
Isn't there a coffee mug about that? Don't confuse my medical degree for Google.
Yeah. Let me just go consult my legal Google. No.
Oh no, never Google. It's always something very very evidence based and validated that we use to Google. But no, I think that access to the information and information can be disseminated so much faster, and so you can catch up with like the most current things much faster, and so I think that's really good for patients too.
We joked about Google, but have you noticed in your practice side of things that people like me come in like, oh, I think I have sarcoidosis because I Googled this thing and I've got 6 of the 10 symptoms, or I saw it on TV and I need the thing with the cool mascot.
Yeah.
Is that a thing?
All the time, every day. And sometimes people are spot on, and sometimes they're like, not
so much.
Let's take it back.
Is that helpful to your practice that they've kind of like started to pay attention to things, or is it more annoying because they've become kind of hypochondriacs with everything they see on TV?
More often than not, it's more helpful. It's rare that it's somebody is overreacting and trying to find something that isn't there. More often it's helpful. And I actually think that if more people had, access to the information and could advocate for themselves by having that information at their fingertips, or even somebody else who could help them advocate for that, everyone would be so much better off. So, yeah, I don't mind it. So I kind of appreciate those conversations when they come in and say, hey, I read this thing. And actually patients will sometimes, they'll bring in things like, oh, I read this article, or I saw this thing, and what do you think about it? And then it's really good exercise in going through, something with a patient, being like, okay, this is a legitimate article, and here's the reason why, and yeah, we should listen to this, or maybe this is not as reputable a resource, and this is how you can kind of, identify some sources that maybe are not as trustworthy. So, good conversations.
This is kind of a selfish question because I think every employer is kind of struggling with how to increase its representation in the workforce and stuff. So what kind of things can a profession do, medical profession, city profession, to like increase diversity or increase that pipeline, or what are some tips that you've kind of come across in that role that you have with your program that you're working there?
Yeah, definitely. Well, I think
and I'm just going to write down everything you say and we're just going to copy
sure
it.
yeah I think go ahead and do it. Just wash, rinse, and repeat. I think that in all of the spaces where representation from a diversity standpoint, no matter what type of diversity it is that you're looking at, whether it's racial or ethnic diversity or otherwise, there's a lot of different ways to be diverse. But I think one of the baseline tenets is to identify and acknowledge implicit bias, and then take steps towards mitigating implicit bias. There's so many ways to have bias, and we all have it. I have bias. I'm actually a bias mitigation trainer.
Really?
Yeah, so I do that in healthcare. I've done that through Ohio State, and then also through for Ohio Health. But it's one of the things that in any space, in any workplace, if you want to improve interactions and improve even community relations,
Yeah.
if everyone took steps to identify and realize that they do have bias, and then to take action steps towards mitigating that bias, a lot of things would be better, including opportunities for, persons who may not have had access to those opportunities.
I can imagine that implicit bias training might also be helpful from like a doctor-patient relationship too, in terms of like getting that communication with the patient, figuring out what it is, not making assumptions about what they've got based on something that you're not thinking about or something. I just made that up, but is that a thing?
No, you're spot on.
Oh!
No, you're 100% spot on. Not just like bias, from your patients about what their diagnosis might be, but diagnosis about your patient from like their demographic, or their even their body habitus, or their ethnic background, or their languages that they speak, or their gender or gender identity. I mean, just there's so many different ways to have bias. And then if you can, as a physician, understand, okay, I do have this bias, which is by definition, an unconscious thought, an automatic association that you have that's unconscious, it's unintentional, and often in direct conflict with what you want to be thinking. And that's exactly why it's implicit and not intentional. So as soon as you can identify what those are and then take steps to mitigate those biases, then your interactions with the patients will be better. There's data to support that, even patient perception of your visit, if you're able to mitigate those bias, they perceive the quality of the visit to be longer, and they, perceive the level of the care that they receive to be better quality.
Cool. So you have 3 jobs.
I thought 4 if you count the ones after work.
So I was going to ask, I was going to go there next. You are a mom.
Sure am.
How many kids?
I got 2.
How old are they?
14 and 10.
I've got a 4-year-old, so does it get like easier or harder?
I didn't believe this. I do have one of my partners at work. It's so funny. She used to say to me, like,
boys or girls?
The 14-year-old is a girl, and then 10-year-old's a boy.
Okay.
But yeah, my partner at work used to say, "Oh, I don't know, bigger kids, bigger problems," and that's when mine were, little, like daycare and things like that. And I didn't really believe it until then it's actually happening to me. I'm like, oof, you're right. And then I talked to her, and her kids are, college age and beyond. And it's like, nope, you're right, because I hear about what's going on in their lives, and it just keeps same amount of work. It's just different, right? Instead of chasing a toddler with your arms out like this, trying to make a halo of safety so they don't hit their head on something. You spend hours doing that, and
now you just track them on Find My iPhone.
There you go. There you go. You're following on Instagram, trying to figure out, okay, what's going on over there.
Yeah, we've got. So it's funny around the office. So I think I have the oldest kids of folks around the office with kids still in the home or semi in the home in college, and then there's a series of folks who have kids slightly younger. And I do find that one of my jobs is to just simply scare the younger parents around the office. And whatever.
This is your future talk was really insightful for me, Steve. Thank you.
Yeah, exactly. So it is. I do think the bigger kids, bigger problems. Little less frequent, but they get kind of big. So 14-year-old's a freshman or a
freshman?
Sophomore? Okay.
Freshman at the high school. That place is enormous.
Now,
enormous.
Is she a tennis player too?
She sure is.
Okay.
She sure is. And I guess I'll brag a little bit. She made the varsity A tennis team.
Nice.
As a freshman?
Yes.
I'm not even
there's
in
two
high school.
freshmen.
That's a big deal, right?
Yeah.
So what's the key to her game?
The key to her game? Oh, man.
Don't give the scouting report. The other schools will listen.
I know. We do have a massive following that usually involves people.
What's UA Tennis's biggest rivalry? Because our ratings over there are about to go up.
I think, there's 4 of us, and we all play tennis. I'm by far the worst one out of all of us. Even the 10-year-old can beat me by now.
I did look up on Google, and your tournament records are up on.
Oh, man.
They're not bad.
Google.
I know.
Yeah.
Doesn't work for sarcoidosis, but it does work for tennis records. Have you won any matches?
I have.
Well, then you're not as bad as our volleyball team. Sorry, just kidding, volleyball team. We love you.
Yeah, I personally, in my old lady tennis league, have won an occasional match. Not as many as the rest of the winners in my family, but yeah, I'm by far the worst tennis player.
So I cut you off. What's the secret to her game?
Yes. Oh, secret to her game? I'm not really sure because she knows a lot more stuff about tennis than I am. But whenever I play her, she always beats me because she always hits winners, and I can barely return her serve. So, yeah.
Did you come to tennis kind of along with your kids, or were you playing all along and they've just joined in the fun?
Well, it's interesting. So probably around the same time of the origin story of this podcast was the origin story of the Kimmel family tennis situation because it was a pandemic situation.
Oh, so you don't have to be good yet. It hasn't been that long.
Yeah, thank you. I don't have to be good yet. Yeah, no. I just started.
I put yet in there. You still have time.
Yeah, I still have time. Still have time for world domination on my old lady tennis league.
Wait a minute, so your daughter's only been playing for 2 years? 3 years.
Yeah, we started fall of. Yeah, she had her first lesson fall of 2020. Yeah, and then she started getting serious after the new year. Yeah, something just really clicked for her. Yeah, she's.
So you clearly, I don't know if you believe in nature or nurture, but there are some genes that you have passed down. So you have it within you to be great.
She has it in her to be great. It might be because my husband's much better at tennis than I am, but I do enjoy it. I like the social aspect, and yeah, I enjoy the geometry and the nerdy science part of where to stand when you're in doubles and all that stuff.
Do you see like those memes with the like math formulas and the like lines and the geometry when you're hitting it, like to see where you should hit it? Is it that level of?
No, I wish it were.
You know what I'm talking about? Where it's like I can calculate where I need to hit the ball.
I have to ask the most controversial question we're going to ask.
Don't do it.
Oh boy.
Don't. I know what you're gonna. Go ahead.
Have you tried pickleball?
Oh, no. I have not tried pickleball, and the reason why is because I heard that when you play pickleball, the technique is slightly different than tennis.
It is.
And because I'm just barely functional at tennis, I'm a little bit worried that if I play pickleball, it will make my game even worse than it is now. So no, I have not tried it.
But what if all the weaknesses in tennis are strengths in pickleball?
Just a second, Darren. For clarity's sake, have you ever played pickleball?
Yeah, I've played with you.
You did?
Yes! Great memorable was, friend.
The whole thing where you're like, when Nanette said, I've heard that if you play pickleball, it messes with your game. And you were very authoritatively like,
no,
yes.
I was the reverse. So I played tennis in high school, but got cut from the tennis team. Funny story. And then when I tried to play pickleball, I'm expecting the paddles to be long like a racket.
Okay.
So I swing and just miss everything in pickleball because I think the racket's going to be there, but it's just this large ping pong paddle. So my tennis game's ruining my pickleball game.
Okay.
We have a Friday noon pickleball thing where a bunch of folks from the office go over to Fancyburg and play. Did you come over one time and play?
We had a whole tournament as directors, as a bonding experience, and I think you beat me.
No.
You and Jackie beat me and Carla, but okay, nice to know it's memorable.
I do remember now.
I was a founding member of the pickleball group until it conflicted with the basketball group.
I'm sorry, I forgot.
I'm obviously so good that I was memorable, but
I'm wondering if maybe there's some unresolved trauma experience happening here with this pickleball situation that maybe we're
there's a lot of unresolved trauma between me and Steve, to be honest.
There is some. We maybe we should try couples counseling.
And then we played basketball and you blocked me. Sorry. No, I have played both not very well. You're probably better at tennis than I was at my peak.
I mean, I play tennis mostly to hang out with my friends, so yeah.
Do you? This is a dumb question. Do you play on the hard court or the clay court?
Any court.
You've played both?
Yeah.
I've never played on clay.
We got to head over to Northam. There you go.
Will it make me better?
Go to Northam and ask for one of the hat-outs to give you a lesson. Yeah, that's where everybody
and
starts out.
tell everybody over there you're the city attorney.
Be like, did you do it? Did you do it? No, I didn't do it.
Moving right along.
Is tennis your favorite sport to play? Have you do anything else?
I mean, I used to, in high school I played volleyball, so that was a little bit hard to translate from hitting something with a hand to hitting something with an instrument. But yeah, that's my only.
Are you good at
volleyball? Is hula a sport? I was
gonna say the other thing that I saw on your thing was that you are in a Polynesian dance group.
I am. I'm in a Polynesian dance company called Mahana Productions, and we do Hawaiian hula and Tahitian forms. Yeah.
This is another one of my dumb TV questions. Like on shows where they'll be in Hawaii, they'll be kind of at an outdoor bar, and there'll be people doing it on the stage. Is that accurate? Like, are they just kind of? Is that kind of what you see when you go to one of these things?
Yeah, most of the time that's totally wrong.
I figured it would be. That's why I asked the question, because TV is never accurate.
Most of the time totally wrong. And maybe if I can get my act together and submit our application to the Labor Day Arts Festival, maybe I could get in there to get the group up on the stage.
We know people.
It's super early though, and I missed the deadline this year, so I got to try.
I mean, you just submit it now, and you'll be ready for next year.
That's a good idea. I will submit it now. But yeah, that's more of one of my more recent hobbies that I picked up.
How did you pick that up? Because that's very specific.
Yes. So through social media, I became aware of a Facebook group called Filipinos in Ohio, and I was like, hey, I'm Filipino and I'm in Ohio, so I was like scrolling through there, and I found this group of women who had either lived in or have Hawaiian or other Polynesian roots, and there was a beginner's Polynesian dance class, and I thought, I'll go check it out, and that was over a year ago, and now I'm all in, and so I've learned a lot, and a lot of those forms are actually very similar to a lot of Filipino cultural dance that I did back in college and in my youth. So,
I have some concerns.
Yeah, tell me.
You picked up tennis in 2020 and you're winning some matches. You picked this up a year ago and you're already good. Are you like one of those people who just gets really good at stuff really fast?
Well, I mean, good enough.
So
better than I'll ever be.
Good enough to teach Darren and I a couple of steps.
Oh my gosh. Well, I mean that
I'm not going to actually have you do that, but I just wanted to ask.
I mean, I could probably teach you a couple of steps, but if you're going to go like the traditional route of learning Polynesian dance, you have to have permission to be able to teach other people how to do the dance. And so for that reason,
So you don't have permission to teach us?
I wouldn't be, no, because I've not been granted permission from my teacher, who had to have permission from her teacher in order to pass it down. That is the tradition and the respectful way of perpetuating the
That's
the
probably
forms.
better for everybody.
I have this vision of her going to her teacher being like, teacher, I want to teach somebody our thing. And they're like, well, cool. Who do you want to teach? I'm like, Steve and Darren. Like, nope,
No.
revoked.
Yeah. Yeah, as a cultural form, it's I think it's a really cool way to kind of respect the origins of the traditional dance of the people that it represents, because it's more than just the moves. It's like a language, it's an expression, it's a it's so much more than just what you're seeing on TV when you see the people in like the cellophane skirt and the coconut bras, which is not usually a thing.
Yeah.
P.S. But yeah, not a thing. So.
Well, I think it sounds like a cool way to connect with your heritage, and in doing so, connect with people who've got kind of a shared heritage and a shared story. So that sounds really cool.
Yeah, I've learned a lot about that. And actually, we a couple weeks ago, we had a fundraiser to raise money for the victims of the wildfires in Hawaii and Maui, and that was really successful. And we had it at the center. Gosh, what was the name of it? It's right next to Akihana. There's a Japanese cultural center right there. I'm trying to. The name of it is slipping my mind right now, but yeah.
But just up here
right
on Kenny Road.
Yep, that's right. That's right. It was right up there, and it was a big success, and we might have another one at some point. So if we have another one, I'll invite you to come to the performance.
That would be awesome if you
Yeah.
did that, particularly for a fundraiser.
Yeah.
So if one of our 10 listeners does happen to be an individual who's interested in learning more about Polynesian dance or connecting, is a member of the Polynesian community and wants to connect, what's the best way to do that?
Yeah, the next best step would be, you could just, again, here we are, Google Mahana Productions, and they have a website, and they also have a Facebook page, and they have beginner classes, starting up all the time. So,
Sweet.
Yeah.
All right, so we told you at the beginning that when we got to the end, we were going to ask you 2 final questions.
Okay.
What do you love about UA? What would you change?
Ooh, I think there are a lot of things I really like about UA. The thing that kind of like drew me here was the schools, and obviously the community is beautiful, and the neighborhoods. But I think my favorite thing about UA would be the people that I've met, and the community that I've been able to build in order to like raise my family and do things together with people in the community. So I think that that's my favorite thing about UA. And if I were to change something about UA, I think it would be its reputation of maybe historically not being as inclusive as some of the other communities. I think if I could change that, or if I could change people's perception of that, that's the one thing that I would change.
That's both of those are great, and I will say, when I was walking around double checking my to make sure I had my 90s pop groups right, I realized that there are a number of people. There's somebody who you play tennis with who works in the building now, and somebody who's in one of your dinner groups who works in the building. And they both commented on how much they love you and love having you as part of the community. So I won't call them out on that. I'll tell you after we get off.
I want to know who won that tennis match. That's all I want to know.
I don't know.
Probably them. It's okay. I told you I just do it to hang out with my friends. I'm not really out to win.
Well, it's New Abby, not Old Abby.
Oh, New Abby.
New Abby.
Okay.
That plays tennis, and my guess is, talking to Abby, she seems like she takes it pretty seriously. So.
This is not an insult to you in any way. I bet New Abby probably won that one. Yeah. I think she would win.
Do you know who we're talking about?
Yes.
Okay. She started this week, and I can't remember her last name.
Everyone is like New Abby.
It's New Abby, because we have another Abby too.
That's okay. You just jump to first name basis with everyone. It's very inclusive. It's cool.
Thank you. To the second of those, it is something that we have talked about a lot, about the fact that this community has a history of not being welcoming. That is well documented, and we need to do a couple things. One is, I think, acknowledge that we're trying to overcome that history, and be really purposeful about telling people that, hey, we want lots of different kinds of people here. We are, it's getting back to that old sense of hospitality and being a good neighbor and doing all those things. But it takes time, and it takes work to change your reputation. And it is something, what you've said is kind of, I think, probably the most frequent thing that comes up when we ask that question, is some kind of theme on wanting the community to have more people feel welcome here, be more diverse, have a better reputation in terms of being a welcoming place, all those sorts of things. So
I do have a follow-up question for you, because the way you worded it, and maybe you didn't do it on purpose, it sounded very much like reputationally. Your personal experience, do you feel like it's a welcoming place from your perspective, and it's more of like a bad reputation type thing, or are there things you would like to see kind of change from your own personal experience?
Yeah. My own personal experience has been mixed. So, I got here and I really wanted to be here because of all the things, it's beautiful, and the proximity to downtown, the proximity to my work and the schools. And, I got here and my street was just wonderful. My neighbors were awesome, very welcoming, open arms, really interested in getting to know me and my family. But it wasn't always like that in all the places. And it wasn't always like that in the schools for my kids either. And so it took a while, but over time we were able to find, the community and, the groups and the support structures that, really felt like, okay, as a biracial family in this community, that we felt really welcomed and loved by people. But it took a little bit of time to understand, that maybe not everyone had the same experience of, growing or, living and working among people that maybe were different from themselves. So, and I know you'll have that everywhere. But I think that in knowing the historical roots of Upper Arlington, and the way that the community was structured initially, and a lot of other communities were structured in that way too, with historical redlining and that sort of thing. But I think that the more we were able to find people that acknowledge that history and were vocal about, like, okay, we don't want to be known for that, that really helped out a lot. And so there were times when, maybe I felt like, okay, maybe this place is not as welcoming as I wanted it to be. But when you go out and you try to find those groups, or you try to engage in different, community groups that are looking to improve that perception, that's when things really started to turn around for me and for my family. I decided, like, okay, either I'm going to move, or I'm going to try to be part of the solution of overturning this perception of what this community could be like. And also education, right? Education for people about, the things that we already touched on, like the implicit biases. I think that in general, not just in medicine or in law or in, professional spaces, but if people in general were aware of what their implicit biases and their assumptions were, of people who might be different from themselves, and work to mitigate them, their interactions everyday interactions with people on the street, in the stores, in the restaurants, in the schools, with their, in their churches, everywhere, would be a lot different.
And I do want to thank both you and your husband for your work on these issues. The first time I met either of you was when the schools did the longest table event, and I was at a table with your husband, whose first name's not Jimmy.
Greg.
Right? Okay.
Yeah.
Greg Kimmel, not Jimmy. And so
I get that question a lot.
Rumor start, yeah.
And did you know that Jimmy Kimmel lives in UA? Could we get him on? So
let me talk to him. We're related.
Is he cousin or anything? Could we get him on? So no, and then you have also joined the board of the Community Foundation, And I sit as an ex officio member on that board and attend their board meetings. And I have really appreciated how you've taken your personal experience and your professional experience and kind of brought that voice, brought that experience, brought that knowledge to that group, because it really is, I think, a great way for people to get engaged is serving on boards like whether it's the Community Foundation or the Civic Association or whatever, and taking that leadership role and getting people who have different experiences than and bring that level of diversity to those boards is fundamental to kind of getting this place to be more welcoming and have people look at it and say, oh yeah, I can see myself in that board. I can see myself in that community. So thank you for doing that.
Oh yeah, my pleasure. I think when we talk about like the role of medicine in health, it's thought that only 20% of health is actually related to what I can do in the exam room or with my prescription pad. 20%, 80% is actually what you do, what you all are doing here, right, which is building into the communities that the patients go back into. Without that infrastructure and those social determinants of health, which are the same ones for education,
right,
and tying into, a sense of community, of belonging, of inclusion, right, of having the infrastructure of safe sidewalks to walk on, of libraries and awesome parks and beautiful places to walk in, and access to all different kinds of arts and culture and restaurants and, community groups, ways to connect with other people. Without any of that, I can only do 20%. 80% is what you are all doing here.
So would you say kind of in some ways Steve and I are like doctors?
You're better than doctors, I think, is what I'm trying to say.
Dr. Steve.
So Dr. Steve coming to you on QFM.
80% of your health is
80% of your health.
You're welcome.
You're welcome, y'all.
No. Actually, my wife's a social work professor at OSU, and she talks all the time about how, particularly as you age, the frequency and quality of your social interactions is a better predictor of your health than anything else, including smoking, diet, any medical history, anything like that. It's the frequency and quality of your social interactions. So that is part of why we try and do some of the things we do, including having a podcast, which encourages people to feel like they know their neighbors. And so thank you for coming on and being our neighbor.
Thank you for improving our social interaction, and thanks for answering all our stupid questions.
Thanks for not showing me any rashes.
And what I'm really happy about is you went through this whole thing. What's the name of that disease that you dropped? Like
sarcoidosis, man.
And you went through it, and you resisted telling Darren what sarcoidosis is.
I still don't know what it is.
You're going to have to Google that one.
Don't tell him.
Yeah.
But she confirmed that it's real, and that's half of what I needed out of this interview. So,
all right. Thanks, Nanette, for coming on.
You're welcome. Thanks
so
for
much.
having me.